Hi, in this video, I'm going to show you how you can set up the MedPie Creations child check-in application so that you can share a central database among multiple workstations. So if you have more than one workstation, you probably want to share the data across all of them so that you won't have to enter the family information and the children information on multiple workstations. So the first thing that you should do is purchase a license for the child check-in application for each of the workstations. So the purchase that you made for your child check-in app is only for installing the app on one single computer. So you should determine how many check-in stations that you would like to have, and then go to the MudPie Creations website where you can purchase the additional licenses. You can either purchase them on a CD or as a download. So I have two computers that have child check-in installed on them. The first one, as you can see, has some fictitious data, and my second computer has child check-in installed, but as you can see, it's a fresh install, there's no data. And so I want to get the second computer configured so that it can see all of the data that's in my computer here on the first one. Okay, so there's steps that we'll need to take on each computer. So the first thing that you should do is decide which computer you want to host the database, the one that will be um, the one that has the database that contains the data that you want to share. So I'm going to choose this one, obviously, because there's already data there. And then the next thing that you need to do is make sure that each of the computers are networked together. And here you may need to get your network administrator to assist you with this. So to test this out, first I'm going to figure out what is the name of this computer that I'm going to use to host my data. So if I go to a Windows Explorer, File Explorer window and right click on this computer and choose Properties, that will display the computer name. And as you can see, it's called desktop-1. Okay, so I'm going to go to the second computer and I'm going to see if that I can access that computer. And so the way that I will do that is I'll go to a File Explorer window and I will type backslash backslash, and then I would type in desktop 1. And so when I hit the enter key, you can see that it says this folder is empty, but it didn't give me an error. If I had chosen the name of the computer that doesn't exist, let's just try desktop 3, which that one doesn't exist. It will try for a while, and it will eventually say that it cannot access desktop 3. That's because it doesn't exist. So since we were able to access desktop 1, that means that these computers are networked together and desktop 2 can see the computer that's going to host the database. So if you have difficulty with this, you could possibly use the IP address rather than the name of the computer. So let me show you how you can get the IP address for this computer. So to do that, you would go to the computer that's going to host the database, and on the Windows search bar, you would type in CMD. That stands for command. And you can see that command prompt is displayed in the list of options. So I'm going to click on that, and it's going to launch the command prompt. So here I'm going to type in IPCONFIG, IP config. Then I'm going to press the enter key. So what I'm looking for is the IPv4 address. And you can see here that I have the IP address listed here. So if I go back to my other computer that I want to connect to this one, I'm going to go to my File Explorer window and I'm going to type in backslash backslash, and I'm going to put in that IP address that I see in the command window on the other computer. Okay, and as you can see, it popped up. It says the folder's empty, but it was successful. And so if the computer name does not work, but the IP address does work, that will be useful information that we'll use in just a few minutes. Okay, so now that we've established the fact that we're able to see the first computer that's hosting the database from my other check-in station computer, we're ready to move on to the next step. If you had any issues with that first step in um, making sure that they're networked together properly, then you'll need to call your network administrator, the one who set up your computer network, your wireless network, or whatever you have, and get them to assist you in troubleshooting. Okay, I'm going to leave this command prompt open for a minute just in case, just so that I can show you how you might use that IP address in the future. Okay, so to get the steps involved for connecting to the shared database, we're going to launch the help file and we're going to look in the help contents. And here we're going to find step-by-step instructions that we're going to use as we go through this tutorial. So it's under the Backup and Restore Database heading, and here you'll see Connect to Shared Database. So if I click on that, it's going to give me pictures and everything that I need to know. Okay, I'm going to scroll down to the instructions for how to set up the connections, and the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to configure the SQL Server database so that it will accept remote connections. So to do that, I'm going to launch the SQL Configuration Manager. So I'm going to go to the Windows Start button, and I'm going to scroll down to the M's for Microsoft, and I'm going to locate Microsoft SQL Server 2014. I'm going to click on that. I'm going to choose SQL Server 2014 Configuration Manager. I'm going to choose Yes to allow the app to make changes. And here's the Configuration Manager. So I'm going to locate the SQL Server Network configuration here on the left, and I'm going to expand that. So then I'm going to look for protocols for MPC. So there's only one of those here on this computer, so I'm going to click on that. All right, then I'm going to look on the right side of the list of protocols for TCP/IP. Here it is at the bottom. Notice that the status is set to disabled. We want to turn that on and make it enabled. So we're going to right click on it and we're going to choose enable. And it will tell me that I have to restart the service before that takes effect. So I'm going to hit OK. Okay, so now the status is enabled. I'm going to close that and I'm going to go up to the next one that says SQL Server Services. And I'm going to look for the service called SQL Server Browser. Okay, I'm going to right click on that and I'm going to choose Properties. And then I'm going to go to the Service tab and I'm going to change the startup mode. It's set to disabled. I'm going to change that to automatic. This will let the service start every time I boot up this computer. The service will start automatically for me. Okay, then I'm going to press the OK button. Now, the startup mode is automatic, but the status is stopped. So I'm going to right click on SQL Server Browser and I'm going to choose Start. Okay, and then if you remember when we made our changes to the protocol that it told me I would need to restart the SQL Server service in order for my changes to take effect. So I'm going to right click on the SQL Server MPC service and I'm going to choose Restart. So that will let the changes that I made a few minutes ago take effect. So if you have a firewall protecting your computer, then you'll need to allow access by SQL Server through the firewall. So likely you'll want to get your network administrator involved in making these settings, but I can show you just the basic way to allow an app through the firewall. So you would go on the computer that is going to host the database. You would go to the Windows search bar and type in firewall. And then what pops up here is allow an app through Windows Firewall, which that's what we want. We're going to choose change settings, and we're going to click on allow another app. Okay, and so we want to browse to the location of the SQL Server exe and the SQL Browser exe. So if we look back at our help file here, it tells us what the path should be. So we're going to choose Browse, and we're going to select, go up to the root, we're going to choose Program Files x86, Microsoft SQL Server, MS SQL 12 MPC, and MS SQL, and then the bin folder. So if you have a newer version of Child Check-In that has an updated version of SQL, then this MS SQL 12 may be a higher number. Okay, so then we're going to look for the SQL Server application. And there it is. So we're going to choose Open. Okay, we're going to choose Add. And now here it is. It's now an allowed app or feature. SQL Server Windows NT. And we're going to next add the SQL Browser app. So we're going to browse again. This one is in a slightly different location than what we previously selected. It's under Program Files x86, Microsoft SQL Server. So we'll get rid of everything after that. And then it's under the 90 folder and then shared. And there's SQL Browser and it's an application. I'm going to choose Open and Add. So now we have both of these set to be allowed through the Windows firewall. Okay, you also may need to get your network administrator to help you allow traffic on port 1433. Okay, we're going to choose OK. And now let's go to the computer that we want to make the connection to our shared database. So we're going to go to the Setup button, and we're going to choose Database Options. So here we're going to click the Connect to Shared Database box, and we're going to type in the name of the computer that's hosting the database, which is Desktop 1. So we're going to then press the Test Connection button, and it says Connection Successful. And then if we press the Apply button, that will save our changes. If you, when we were previously testing out the networking connection, and if we were able to only connect using an IP address, then you can use the IP address that we determined at the beginning of the tutorial from the command window. And so instead of the name of the computer, we can put in that IPv4 address here instead of the computer name. Then we would choose test connection and it should work. Okay, so we're going to hit the apply button, and it tells us that we'll need to restart the child check-in app for these changes to take effect. Before I hit the OK button, I want to point out that as soon as we check the Connect to Shared Database box, notice that we're all the options here on the left are now disabled. So we won't be able to create a backup, restore a backup, or open the backup location from this check-in station. We would have to do all of those from the computer that's hosting the database. Okay, so we're going to hit the OK button. And now when we launch the Child Check-in app, we should see all the data from the other computer. And depending on your network connection speed, it may be slightly longer to start up than when it's running locally. Okay, so notice down here at the bottom, we have that it's connected to Desktop 1 database. So we can see now that we have all the data from our other computer. And then on the computer that's hosting the database, it has at the bottom connected to local database. So that's how you can know which of the check-in stations is the host of the database. It's the one that says local database. That's the one that's hosting all the data for all the other connected check-in stations. Okay, so notice on Desktop 1 here that's hosting the database, we have pictures, but if we look back at our connected check-in station, there are no pictures. So to do this, we'll go to the computer that's hosting the shared database, and we'll press the Setup button. And then the option in the menu is Open Photo Location. So we're going to click on that, and that will launch a File Explorer window that has all of the photos. So we're going to change the permissions on this folder so that it allows other computers that are connected to be able to see this folder. Okay, so we are going to go up one directory to the child check-in folder so that we see photos listed here. So then we're going to right click on that, and we're going to choose Properties. Okay, then we're going to locate the Sharing tab and click on that. And we're going to press the Advanced Sharing button. Okay, then we're going to check the Share This Folder box. And you can leave the name as Photos, or you can make it a little more descriptive. I'm going to change it to CCI Photos for Child Check-in Photos. So then I'm going to press the Permissions button. And here I'm going to give everyone full control. So I'm going to click on the Full Control Allow box. And this will allow the check-in stations to be able to add photos as well as this computer. So I'm going to hit the OK button. And then I'm going to hit the OK button again. And I'm going to close. So now we should be able to access the Photos folder from our other check-in station. So we can test that out. We can go to the Setup button of the Child Check-in app and go to Database Options. And so notice at the bottom it has the location of the photos. So right now it's on the local computer on the C drive. So we're going to choose Browse. And we're going to go to Network. And we're going to find our computer that's hosting the database, which is Desktop 1. I'm going to click on that. And here we see our recently shared folder, CCI Photos. We're going to click on that, and then we're going to press the OK button. Okay, so now if we close this database options, all of our photos from the other computer has appeared here on our other check-in station. Okay, let's look back at our help file and let's look at the recommendations that are listed here. We recommend that you use the program option for the class setup. And so this allows you to differentiate where your check-in stations are located so that you don't have this concurrency issue where one check-in overwrites the other check-ins. So if you go to your setup button and go to classes, you can notice that there is a program option here. And so you can think about how your check-in stations will be divided. You may have a preschool hallway where all of your preschool classes are located, and then you may have another hallway for school age children. So if there's a physical differentiation where your check-in stations occur, then you can name your programs based on that location. Otherwise, you could just say check-in station 1, check-in station 2, if you have classes that are associated with that check-in station. Okay, so I'm going to set up two different programs, one for preschool children and one for school age, and I'm going to put classes into each of those. So I'm going to choose the setup button for my 3 and 4-year-olds. And then if I look at the program, there are none. So I'm going to first set up some programs by clicking on the Setup Programs box. So I'm going to hit the Add a Program, and I'm going to just call it Preschool Hallway and hit Apply. And then I'm going to add another one called School Age Hallway and hit Apply. Okay, and then I'm going to press the OK button. And so now I have my two choices that I just set up. So I'm going to select for the 3 and 4-year-olds class, Preschool Hallway, and hit Apply. My children's church, that's definitely school age. Notice it's first grade to sixth grade, so I'm going to choose School Age Hallway. And I would do this for each of the classes based on where they're physically located so that whichever check-in station is associated with that group of classes, I would add it to that particular program. And again, this is just to ensure that check-ins that occur at almost the same time won't overwrite one another. So now when I close this setup window, I now have the different programs. So on this computer, I would choose Preschool Hallway, or whichever one is closest to those classes. And then at the other check-in station, I believe I'll have to restart to get it to show up. I would select the school age program. Okay, the final things that I'd like to direct your attention to is there's a troubleshooting section on this page of the help file so that if you had some issues being able to access the computers to connect from your remote workstation, check-in station to the computer that's hosting the database, there's a section here about verifying that you can ping the IP address or allowing port 1433 through your firewall. And there's also a link here to a Microsoft website that will give you some additional information. This is really kind of advanced topics. It's outside of the scope of this tutorial, but it's something that your network administrator may find helpful in troubleshooting your connection.